It started as an ordinary Friday night. My wife, Lauren, said she was heading to her friend's place across town for a girls' movie night. I didn't think much of it. She'd been stressed lately, and time with friends made sense. But when she texted later saying, "GPS must be wrong. It keeps rerouting me weirdly," something inside me stirred. Out of curiosity, I opened the Find My Car app. We'd installed the GPS tracker months ago after a break-in scare. I just wanted to make sure she got there safely. But when I checked, the little blue wasn't moving toward her friend's house. It was parked in a completely different neighborhood. I called her. No answer. Texted. No reply. The pit in my stomach grew heavier. After 10 minutes of watching that same blue to stay still, I made a choice that would change everything. I got in my car and followed her out. The GPS led me down quieter streets, past dim streetlights and rows of identical houses. My hands tightened on the wheel when I saw it. Her car, unmistakably hers, parked right outside his house. The same house I recognized from photos on her old co-worker's Instagram. The co-worker she once said barely talked anymore. I pulled over down the street, the engine humming softly, my heart pounding louder than it. That's when I saw the porch light flick on. The porch light flickered on and my chest tightened. I sank lower in the seat, barely breathing. Seconds later, the front door opened. There she was, Lauren. She stepped out, laughing, as a man followed behind her, holding 2 mugs of something steaming. He leaned casually against the doorway, like he'd done it 100 times before. They looked too comfortable, too familiar. I watched as she touched his arm, just for a moment, a small gesture, but it hit like a hammer. My heart raced, my mind spinning through 1,000 explanations. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe she stopped by for something. But then, he reached out and brushed her hair back, fingers lingering near her cheek. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. The GPS tracker. The wrong route. It all suddenly made sense. She wasn't lost. She wasn't confused. She was lying. For a few minutes, I just sat there, frozen, unsure what to do. Should I knock, confront her, or drive home and pretend I never saw any of it? The light from their porch spilled across her face, and I could see the easy smile I hadn't seen in weeks, one she used to have for me. My pulse thundered. Then I noticed something. Her phone on the dashboard of her car. She must have left it there by accident. And that was the moment I got an idea. If she thought the GPS was wrong, I'd make sure she knew just how right it actually was. I waited until their laughter faded back inside. The porch light dimmed and the door clicked shut. The street was quiet again. I stepped out of my car, my pulse hammering in my ears. Lauren's car sat just a few houses down, her phone still glowing faintly on the dashboard. I walked up, unlocked the door using the spare key she didn't know I had, and grabbed her phone. My hand shook as I unlocked it with Face ID. She'd never expect me to think of that. Her messages popped up instantly. At the top of the screen was a thread with a contact saved as M. The most recent text read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. He still thinks I'm at Amanda's." Below it, another message. "You always know how to make me forget everything." I didn't need to read more. My throat went dry, but I refused to fall apart. I took screenshot of everything and a photo of her car parked in front of that house. Time-stamped, undeniable. Then I placed the phone exactly where I found it and stepped back, my breath fogging the cool air. I wasn't going to confront her there. Not yet. I wanted her to see what I saw the same way I had. That's when I opened my own phone, turned on the GPS tracker's route replay feature, and recorded the entire drive back home. Every mile, every stop. A clean record of where she'd been. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen table, the evidence saved in a neat folder on my laptop. When her car finally pulled into the driveway at 12:47 a.m., I was ready. She walked in, pretending to yawn, dropping her bag on the chair. "Movie ran late," she said casually. "We lost track of time." I looked up from my laptop, calm but cold. "Oh, that's funny," I said, "because according to the GPS, you weren't at Amanda's." Her smile froze. Lauren's face went pale. She blinked fast, trying to find her words. "What are you talking about?" she asked, forcing a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "The GPS app messes up all the time. You know that." I turned the laptop toward her. The map glowed on the screen, a perfect route leading straight to his address. "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's what you told me earlier. The GPS must be wrong." But funny thing, it wasn't. Her breath caught. "You followed me?" "I followed the truth," I said, "because you stopped giving it to me a long time ago." She stepped back, eyes darting toward the door like she wanted to escape. "It's not what you think, okay? He's just a friend. We were talking about work stuff." "Work stuff," I said, pulling up the photo of her car parked outside his house. "At midnight? Over coffee? And your phone just happened to text him. Can't wait to see you tonight?" Her lips trembled, but she stayed silent. I took a slow breath. "Lauren, I wasn't going to accuse you without proof. That's why I didn't knock on his door. I wanted you to have the chance to tell the truth here in our home." Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was just supposed to be harmless. I didn't want to hurt you." "Hurt me?" I said, my voice cracking slightly. "You parked outside another man's house and lied to my face. You already did." The silence between us felt endless. Finally, she whispered, "What are you going to do?" I closed the laptop. "That depends," I said, standing, "on whether you want to fix this, or just keep pretending the GPS is wrong." Lauren stood frozen, her arms wrapped around herself like the room had suddenly turned cold. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then her voice cracked, low and shaky. "I wasn't looking for this to happen," she said. Listen, you've been distant lately, working late, barely talking to me. I felt invisible." Her words stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. "So instead of telling me that, you lied and found comfort with someone else?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to. It just happened." I leaned against the counter, my pulse steady but heavy. "That's not how it works, Lauren. You make a choice every time you text someone in secret. Every time you say, 'I'm with friends,' when you're not." She wiped her eyes. "It wasn't physical," she whispered quickly, like the words could undo the damage. "We just talked. He made me feel like someone still cared." I didn't respond right away, because, honestly, I didn't know if that made it better or worse. Finally, I said, "Then tell me this. If it was so innocent, why hide it? Why lie about where you were?" She didn't answer, just lowered her head and stared at the floor. The sound of the clock filled the silence between us. Tick, tick, tick. I sighed and turned toward the doorway. "I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to make a scene. But I need time to think." "Please don't leave," she said softly. "I can explain everything if you'll just let me." I stopped and looked back. "You had your chance to be honest. Now I need mine to decide if there's anything left to save." I walked out of the room, her quiet sobs following me down the hall. That night, I didn't sleep again. But this time, I wasn't replaying the route. I was replaying every moment of our marriage, trying to figure out where we'd lost the road completely. The next morning, the house was silent. Lauren had fallen asleep on the couch, her phone still in her hand, as if she was afraid I'd take it again. I made coffee and sat by the window, staring out at the empty street. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe it was all just emotional confusion. But something in my gut said there was still more, something she hadn't told me. When she finally woke up, she looked exhausted. "Please," she whispered, "can we just talk? I'll tell you everything." I nodded slowly. "Then tell me why his address was already saved in your GPS history before last night." Her mouth fell open. I turned my laptop toward her again, showing the route logs from the past month. Every trip she'd made. The data didn't lie. She'd been there 3 times. Different days. Same destination. Her voice broke. "I just wanted to end it. I swear. But every time I tried, he pulled me back in. So you didn't stop," I said quietly. "You just got better at hiding it." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, Almost without thinking, I clicked on the GPS replay from the last trip. Audio included. I hadn't listened to it before, but the system captured sound when the car was parked. A few seconds of static. Then laughter. Her voice. He'd never find out. He trusts me too much. And his voice low and confident. Then let's make sure it stays that way. The room spun. Lauren's face turned white. She whispered, I didn't know it recorded. I closed the laptop and took a deep breath. Yeah, I said softly. Neither did I. But now I do. I stood up and walked toward the door. The GPS wasn't wrong, Lauren. It just told the truth you didn't want me to see. She didn't try to stop me this time. Just sat there, shaking, as the sound of the closing door echoed behind me. I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, the morning sun cutting through the fog like it was trying to burn away everything I had just learned. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but my mind was somewhere else, replaying every movie night. Every fake smile, every I love you that now felt scripted. Eventually, I parked at a quiet overlook just outside of town. For the first time in years, I didn't feel anger, just emptiness. The GPS app was still open on my screen. That little blue, her car, hadn't moved since I left. She was still there, probably crying, probably realizing that lies travel faster than any route you can follow. I thought about sending the recordings to her parents, her friends, maybe even him. But revenge didn't feel satisfying anymore. I didn't want to destroy her life. I just wanted mine back. So I deleted the copies from my phone, but not before saving them on a flash drive, sealed in an envelope marked, if I ever doubt myself again. When I returned home hours later, Lauren's suitcase was by the door. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. She just handed me her wedding ring, her eyes red and swollen. I'm sorry, she whispered. You didn't deserve this. I nodded. You're right. I didn't. She left quietly, and the sound of the door closing was the only goodbye I needed. Days turned into weeks. The silence in the house was strange at first, but peaceful. I started walking again in the evenings, the same routes we used to take together. And every time I passed a road sign, every time I checked my phone, I reminded myself, sometimes the GPS isn't wrong. It just points you exactly where you need to go, even if it's away from someone you thought you'd love forever. Months passed. The pain didn't vanish overnight, but it faded, piece by piece, like an old scar finally healing. The house felt different now, quieter, lighter. I replaced the photo frame she left empty with pictures from hikes, new friends, and places I'd always said I'd visit someday. Someday had finally arrived. One Sunday morning, I was at a cafe when I ran into Amanda, the real friend Lauren had claimed to visit that night. She gave me a sad smile. I heard about everything, she said softly. You didn't deserve that. I shrugged. It's okay. I think I needed to see the truth for what it was. She nodded, hesitating. You know, sometimes the wrong turn still gets you to the right place. Her words lingered long after she left. Later that week, I opened the old GPS app out of habit. The device was still linked to my car, showing a map of the city. No more secret routes. No more blue dots leading to someone else's door. Just mine moving forward. I smiled for the first time in a while. Not because I forgot the pain, but because I finally understood it. The GPS hadn't betrayed me. It had saved me. Sometimes love doesn't end with a destination. It ends with a direction and the courage to take it alone. As I drove into the sunset that evening, I whispered to myself, the GPS wasn't wrong. I just needed to follow it far enough to find myself. It had been half a year since that night, the night when the GPS told the truth I didn't want to hear. Life had slowly rebuilt itself, not with grand gestures, but in quiet, honest moments. I'd moved into a smaller place closer to the lake. Mornings were peaceful, birds, coffee, and silence that didn't ache anymore. The flash drive with all the evidence stayed locked in my drawer untouched, like a reminder how far I'd come. One evening, I was sitting on a park bench, watching the sun dip below the water, when a voice spoke beside me. Beautiful view, huh? I turned to see a woman in a denim jacket, holding a sketchbook on her lap. She smiled, not in that forced way people do when they're hiding something, but a real, simple smile. Yeah, I said, it reminds me that not every route leads to pain. She laughed softly. That sounds like someone who's been lost before. Maybe, I said, but I think I'm finally heading the right way. We talked until the streetlights came on, about life, art mistakes, and the strange ways people find each other after everything falls apart. When she left, she said her name was Maya, and she hoped to see me again. As she walked away, I looked down at my phone. The GPS app was still open, the blue dot glowing on the map. For the first time in a long time, it didn't remind me of where I'd been. It reminded me of where I might go next. I smiled, closed the app, and whispered, finally, the route feels right again. A year later, I found myself driving down the same road where it all began. The quiet suburban street where a car had once been parked outside his house. The same house that used to make my chest tighten just thinking about it. But this time, I wasn't there to look back. I was just passing through. The house looked different now. Fresh paint, a new mailbox, a swing in the front yard. A family lived there, laughter spilling out through the open window. For a moment, I just sat at the stop sign, watching the scene unfold, not with bitterness, but with peace. I realized something then. That road wasn't cursed. It wasn't where my story ended. It was where it began again. When I pulled away, Maya's voice came through the car speaker. She left me a voicemail earlier. Hey, I know you like to drive without a destination, but don't forget dinner at 7. Don't get lost again. I smiled. Not this time. The GPS showed a clear route home. No detours, no lies, no blue dots leading to Heartbreak. Just one simple line forward. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I whispered to myself, the GPS wasn't wrong after all. It just needed to reroute me to the right person. And with that, I drove on, no bitterness, no anger, just gratitude for every wrong turn that led me here. 2 years later, life had settled into something peaceful, something real. Maya and I had built a quiet happiness together. No secrets, no guessing games, no late-night wrong routes. Just honesty. One morning, while cleaning out old boxes from storage, I found my old laptop, the one I'd used to uncover everything that night. I hesitated before turning it on. The hum of the fan brought back memories I thought were long gone. As the screen lit up, I saw a notification I'd never noticed before. One unsent message, draft folder. It was from Lauren, dated the day after she left. I opened it, expecting excuses, but instead it read, I know you'll never read this, but I need to say it anyway. You didn't deserve what I did. You were kind, patient, and I broke something I can't fix. I hope someday you find someone who gives you what I couldn't. Peace. The GPS wasn't wrong. For a long moment, I just stared at the words. No anger, no tears, just silence. Then I closed the laptop gently and whispered, I already did. That night, I drove with Maya along the coast. The stars reflected off the water, and for the first time in years, I didn't need to check any map. I knew exactly where I was meant to be. The route wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And sometimes that's all the direction love really needs. A few months after finding that unsent message, I decided to take one final drive. Not to escape, but to reflect. I followed the same GPS route that had once shattered my life, from the old neighborhood to quiet overlook where I'd sat alone that first night. Maya was with me this time. The sunset painted the sky gold and pink as we parked near the cliff. I handed her my old GPS tracker, the same one that once exposed everything. She turned it over in her hands. This little thing changed everything for you, didn't it? Yeah, I said softly. It used to remind me of lies. Now it reminds me of truth. She smiled. So, what do you want to do with it? Without another word, I stepped to the edge of the overlook and tossed the tracker into the sea below. It sank beneath the waves, leaving only ripples that disappeared moments later. Goodbye to the old map, I said. From now on, we find our own way. Maya slipped her hand into mine. No GPS. Just us. As we stood there, the wind carrying away the last pieces of the past. I realized something profound. The GPS had never been my enemy. It had been my mirror. It showed me not where my wife had gone, but where I needed to go to rediscover myself. And now, I didn't need directions anymore, because for the first time since that night, I wasn't lost. I was home. A year later, Maya and I decided to take a weekend road trip. The destination didn't matter. That was the point. We packed light, rolled the windows down, and let the wind choose our direction. No navigation apps, no routes, no schedules. Just trust. Halfway through the trip, Maya laughed as we passed a small coastal town. "You realize," she said, "if we get lost, there's no GPS to save us." I smiled. "Then we'll just keep driving until it feels right." That evening, we stopped at a diner overlooking the sea. As we ate, I noticed up on the counter near the window an old, rusted GPS tracker, almost identical to the one I'd thrown into the water a year ago. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe not, but it felt like a quiet sign from the universe. I picked it up, turned it over, and whispered, "Guess you found a way back too." Maya grinned. "Maybe it wanted to remind you, the route doesn't define the driver." Her words hit me harder than she realized. I placed the tracker back on the counter and looked out at the endless horizon. "Yeah," I said, "and sometimes the wrong turns are the ones that take you home." When we drove off, the sun dipped low, painting the ocean gold, and in that light, everything that had once felt broken finally made sense. The past didn't haunt me anymore. It guided me, just enough to remind me how far I'd come. No GPS, no map, just faith, and love that didn't need rerouting. 5 years later, life looked nothing like I once imagined, and that was a good thing. The pain that once consumed me had turned into something wiser, quieter. Maya and I had a little daughter now, Emma, with eyes that caught every detail and questions that never ended. One Sunday, we went for a drive along the coast. Emma sat in the back seat, holding an old map she'd found in a drawer. "Daddy," she said, "why don't you use the GPS?" I smiled in the rearview mirror. "Because sometimes, kiddo, it's more fun not to know exactly where you're going." She giggled. "But what if we get lost?" Maya turned around and smiled at her. "Then we find something new." We stopped at a lookout point, the same one where I'd once thrown away the tracker. I hadn't been back since that day. Now, standing there with my family, it didn't feel haunted, it felt peaceful. As we watched the sunset, I told Emma, "You know, a long time ago, this place helped me find my way again." She tilted her head. "Without a map?" I nodded. "Exactly. Because sometimes the heart knows a route better than any GPS." Maya slipped her arm around me. "Looks like it led you to the right place after all." I looked at them, the two people who become my home, and smiled. Yeah, turns out the wrong route was just the first step to the right life. The ocean shimmered below us, the sky fading into pink and gold. And as the wind carried the sound of laughter across the cliffs, I realized the truth. I hadn't just found love again. I'd found direction, the kind that never needs rerouting. Decades passed. The world changed. Cars drove themselves, maps spoke in new voices, and roads I once knew by heart had turned into highways of glass and light. But some memories never faded, no matter how far time carried me. I was older now, slower, my hair gray like morning fog. Maya sat beside me, our hands still finding each other without looking. Emma had grown up and moved away, chasing her own dreams across distant cities. That afternoon, we drove again, one last small trip along the same coast where everything had begun all those years ago. The sea still roared, steady and endless. Maya smiled. "You still like taking the long way, don't you?" I chuckled. "Always. The short way never taught me much." We parked at the overlook, the same one, the place where I'd once watched my whole world fall apart, and later, where it began again. I stepped out, leaning on my cane, and breathed in the salt air. It didn't sting anymore. It felt like closure. From my pocket, I pulled out a tiny object, weathered and faded, but still recognizable. The old GPS tracker. I'd found it years ago, washed up on the shore after a storm. Somehow it had made its way back. Maya touched it gently. After all this time, it still found you. Yeah, I whispered. Guess even broken things remember their way home. I set the tracker down on the railing, letting the sunset reflect off its cracked surface. Then I smiled, not what I'd lost, but at what I'd found. The GPS wasn't wrong, I said quietly. It just knew the route I didn't. Maya slipped her arm through mine, resting her head on my shoulder as the sky turned gold. And as the waves whispered below, I realized the truth one last time, that every wrong turn, every painful detour, every broken path had led me here. Home, loved, at peace.